For those who don't know me, my name is Stuart Namm. I'm 75 years old, and I live in North Carolina. But I spent almost 17 years as a judge in Suffolk County, 6 in the district court, and almost 11 years in the county court. I was a Democrat in the town of Brookhaven in 1975 and was elected by a margin of 58 votes out of 64,000 cast against an incumbent Republican district court judge as a result of Watergate and a Republican scandal in the town. I felt that I was a fair and good judge, although I had a reputation of being a tough judge. Thus, I was supported by the Superior Officers Association, then being represented by the current Suffolk DA, and the Sheriff's Association when I ran and lost in a race for a family court judgeship during my 6-year term. When I ran for re-election in 1981, I could have run against Mickey Mouse and lost, because by then Ronald Reagan was president and Watergate was a fading memory. Brookhaven had returned to its conservative Republican roots, and the results were not even close. Before becoming a judge, I had practiced law with the late Dominic Barinello, both the county and state Democratic leader, and Fred Block, currently a federal district court judge. After losing, I did not want to go back into private practice, so I had to practically beg my former partner to get me back on the bench. He complained that I had done nothing for the party as a judge and that there was a long line of lawyers who wanted to be a judge. As luck would have it, Dominic Barinello suffered a heart attack that year, and Jack Braslow, father of the most recent Tancliffe judge, sat in for him that spring. When an opening came about in the county court, Braslow submitted my name to Governor Carey, and after being found well qualified by the governor's screening committee, I was appointed to the county court in April 1981. However, that meant that I would have to run in November, when I would almost certainly lose, as Democrats did not win in contested elections in 1981. However, once again, luck was with me, as the New York State Legislature created many new judgeships all over the state after a political agreement that all those chosen would have cross-endorsement in November. Thus, I was given a 10-year term in the county court, beginning on January 1, 1982. Almost immediately after taking to the county court bench, the then administrative judge, Tom Stark, based upon my tough but fair, I felt, judicial reputation, asked if I wished to serve as one of the 3 judges handling almost exclusively homicides and serious felonies. I was delighted at the opportunity to do so, and I jumped at the new assignment with gusto. While I felt that a defendant had been given a fair trial on my part, where someone was convicted of intentional murder or manslaughter as a result of driving while intoxicated, I did not hesitate to hand out the maximum sentence permitted by law, unless there were some very mitigating circumstances, of which there were rarely any. I began to be known as, quote, maximum Stu, unquote, or, quote, the hanging judge, unquote. Needless to say, I once again became the sweetheart of the district attorney's office and the Suffolk County Police Department. However, that began to change in 1984, when I began to notice things taking place in 2 homicide trials which didn't smell right, and after I permitted an African-American attorney to challenge the manner of jury selection in the county. In both homicide trials, Corso and Diaz, the jury saw what I was seeing, and both defendants were acquitted, although many thought that they were in fact guilty of the crimes. However, the jurors acquitted because of the actions and testimony of the homicide detectives. I was now the enemy of the district attorney and the homicide squad, and the new DA began publicly to call me a, quote, cop basher, unquote, in the media. In October 1985, I had seen enough, and I wrote a letter to Governor Cuomo requesting an investigation of Suffolk's law enforcement in homicide cases. That investigation, undertaken by the State Investigations Commission, lasted for 5 long years. My courtroom became a battleground, and I had to fight my way back to criminal jurisdiction after having been, quote, temporarily, unquote, assigned to the Supreme Court. It was during that 5-year period that Marty Tankleff's case was being heard by Judge Alfred Tisch. I had read about the case in Newsday, and I knew the cast of characters real well, so I sat in on many of the hearings and part of the trial when I had completed the work in my part. During the 5-year period, I had many meetings with representatives of the State Investigations Commission who asked whether there were other judges to whom they could speak. I could think of only one who was doing the work that I did. He was a friend, a Democrat, and a decent human being. If anyone would cooperate, I felt strongly that he would. When I told him what they wanted of him, his response was simply, quote, "Stu, I can't get involved. I have to run next year," unquote. I was out there walking the plank alone. When the SIC wrote its final report in 1990, they referred to Suffolk County as, quote, "the Wild West," unquote, and they found more actions even worse than I had seen, and to some, I was vindicated. Virtually the entire homicide squad retired or was transferred, save one, Detective K. James McCready. But no one was ever charged with a crime except the former head of the police laboratory, although many were accused of perjuring themselves. In November 1992, I was to run for re-election as my 10-year term was ending. I began to hear rumors that I was not going to be renominated by my party. How could that be? Although none of my actions were politically motivated, I had obviously embarrassed the Republican power structure. But I should have been a hero to my own party. When I finally reached my former law partner, who was ignoring me, and a friend of more than 10 years, his only response to me was, quote, "Stuart, this was just not your year," unquote. He had extracted 3 judgeships, plus my position, for not renominating me, who had brought a cloud over the county's justice system. In January 1993, we moved to North Carolina, and 3 weeks later, my wife and I were brought back to New York, where I was the recipient of 3 awards. The first recipient of the Justice Thurgood Marshall Award from the New York State Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys, the David C. Michaels Award from the New York State Bar Association, and a special award from the NAACP. Those meetings were boycotted by members of the Suffolk County Bar who normally attended those meetings, but for 3 lawyers, Bob Gottlieb, Fred Block, and Paul Gianelli, all heroes in my mind. To my way of thinking, these awards, as important as they were in effect posthumous. They had taken my robes, ended my judiciary career, and ended my career as a judge. The reason I've asked to address you tonight is to tell you the moral of this story. From my point of view, nothing will really change in places like Suffolk County, and there will be many more Marty Tankleffs until the means of selecting judges is changed in New York State. Taken out of the party boss's hands, like Dominic Barinello, and put into the hands of a nonpartisan judicial commission appointed by the governor and the state bar. Until then, there will always be judges who, quote, "have to run next year," unquote, or who have dreams of being district attorneys, like Judge Tisch. Good luck, and thanks for the opportunity to address you.